The next game I want to go over to, it's very interesting by the originality of the combination and tactical shot. E4, D5, ED, knight F6, D4, knight takes D5, knight F3, bishop G4, bishop E2, knight C6, C4, knight B6, D5, bishop takes F3, bishop takes F3. This is all opening stage. Knight E5, bishop E2, and black played C6. Obviously, you cannot take on C4 in this position because bishop takes C4, knight takes C4, queen A4 check, and white wins the game. So black played C6. Now they are attacking D5 pawn, and they are attacking the C4 pawn. Queen to D4, attacking the knight, knight to G6, knight C3, and black played E5. This already happened in my game several times. Queen to E4, C takes D, C takes D, bishop to D6, bishop B5 check, knight D7, white castled, and black castled. Now this position will be great for black if they can manage to play F5 next move. So then they're going to have very strong position in the center and have, after queen moves, the central pawns keep moving. So white played queen F5. And after knight C5, B4. Now, but is it good for white to keep their queen on F5 as a blockading piece? No, queen is not a good blockading piece. Knight A6, A3, knight E7. You see, that's why queen is not good blockading piece. Now queen has to move. It's attacked. Queen H3, knight to C7, and bishop to D3. And finally, black played F5. Black has a great position now because they have potentials of going E4. After F5, white played bishop G5 and E4, bishop C4, and H6. Now, white has to move the bishop on D2. Bishop takes H6 is definitely insufficient compensation for white because queen takes H6, queen E8. And white is queen E8 is not good because bishop is hanging. A simple rook F7 will give black totally winning position. So white has to move the bishop to D2. But now knight G6, and you see that nothing indicates that there will be combination anytime soon, but you see how black dominates now. They're going to play queen, knight E5, and queen F6, and the grandmaster that was playing with white, they feel the danger and they recognize the danger, they smell danger before it gets there. So, and white thought that it's necessary for them to play F3, and after E takes F, to play G takes F. Now, notice on queen takes F3, knight E5 is very strong. So, and G takes F, queen to F6, played by black, threatening queen D4 check and attacking almost all the white's pieces. Bishop on D2, bishop on C4. White simply played knight E2, and here black has a winning combination. After B5, black wins here. Now, what can white do in this position? If white goes bishop D3, maybe black can simply take on D5. If white goes bishop B3, then queen B2 is dangerous, attacking both white bishops. So white played bishop c3. Well, this is typical in-between move, and it's hard to tell that this move can lose on the spot immediately. What happened here, black has knight f4, and you can tell that white is totally hopeless. Now, let's see why. If knight takes f4, then black plays queen takes c3, and you see that both white's minor pieces attack. They lose a piece, they lose a game. Now, let's look at some couple of other opportunities. Now, if white takes black's queen, then black takes white's queen. And now, when white plays king g2, you see it's black's move. Black's knight on h3 is hanging, but two white bishops are hanging as well. So white takes one piece, one bishop first, and after king takes h3, white takes second bishop and wins the game. So after knight f4, obviously, for this reason, bishop takes f6 is not good. So that leaves white only one move, queen g3. But interestingly enough, queen g3 sets up, exposes for another shot. B takes c, now quietly taking the bishop that protects e2 knight. And if white plays bishop takes f6, now knight takes e2. And after knight takes g3, white's queen, black wins a lot of material. And after b takes c, for this reason, white simply resigned. Well, now, going back to the position, this position, you can tell, how do you find combination here? How do you find b5 move? How do you find whatever happened in the game? First of all, if we don't find it, we still have good position. But that's not a consolation. We are looking for the best move. We don't know where the shot is going to be. But look, bishop on d2 is kind of loose. Bishop on c4 is loose. Now, if we had some move like queen d4 and knight wasn't on e2, we would have attacked several pieces. Those minor pieces are vulnerable. I want to play queen b2. And bishop cannot move from d2 because bishop can move from d2, but because white's c4 bishop protects the knight. So what we want to do, we want to move this bishop, make this bishop go away. If bishop goes to b3, then we have queen b2 attacking almost every white's minor piece. If bishop goes the other way, then you see d5 pawn is on pre. So black has different problem on every move. And when they played bishop c3, you see that knight on e2 protects the f4 square, defends the dark square bishop, and it's a little loose. You should notice there is an invisible eye that should notice something artificial, something loose in white's position. That's how you find knight f4 move. And then you started searching for it one by one move. You are not starting searching for move a6 or a5 in this position. That's what computers do. We know where to look. We are not looking at the queen side of the board. We are looking at the king side of the board and the center. We notice the knight f4 move. We double check it. It works. It wins. Queen g3, another tactical shot. They are very decisive shots. They are very powerful. At the same time, if you are searching in the right direction, the correct way, they are not that difficult. So remember, find the loose spots in the position. That's where what your eye should be concentrating on. That's where are the loose spots by your opponent. and that's where you hit. Let's go through very, very good example of thematic combinations where we find a theme for the combination, and you see there is more than one ways to execute this combination. And sometimes it may seem that it doesn't really make any difference, but sometimes it's critical. One of them may work and one of them doesn't work. And now let me talk to you about typical problem, very typical problem some people may experience in playing certain combination. You have to notice that when you play some combination, your opponent does not, will not, and does not want to cooperate with you. So a lot of combinations have counter combinations, and it's very, very important to try to find the best answer for your opponent. And remember, once your opponent sees what you want to do with this combination, he becomes very desperate, like a wounded animal, and he tries to find some way out of it. Here is the game I want to look at. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, bishop c5, c3, and f5. That's not very good way to play against Ruy Lopez, but it's one of the possible continuations, and we don't want to really analyze it now. d4, bishop b6. Well, in this position, after bishop b6, white plays d5. Actually, at d4 was also possible f takes e, and f takes e probably is the best move. d4, bishop b6, d5, f takes e, and knight to g5. Now, after knight to g5, black's knight is hanging. Black cannot move knight to e7 because this is another interesting tactical shot. It's not really a tactical shot, it's a simply white attacking black's queen and wins the black's queen. After d5, black plays e3. Now you see black also attacks white's knight on g5. So white plays d takes c, and now black cannot take white's knight because after c takes d, they lose more material. You see, they simply lose the bishop on c8. So what happened in the game, black plays b takes c. Now black is a piece down, but there are two white's pieces are hanging. This is the combination was played by black, and two white's minor pieces are hanging. White answers to this, and it looks like black is winning, and that's it. But after h4, this is another tactical shot by white. Now this is interesting. White plays c takes b, black takes c takes b, or actually black even took on f2 first, king f1, and c takes b. Now black is 3 pawns up, but after queen d5, that's the idea of white's shot. Now you see initiative changing hands. Now white is threatening checkmate on f7, and white is also threatening queen takes rook. So black continues developing and also stopping mate on f7. White plays queen takes a8, black plays c6. And now let's evaluate this position. Position is very, very dangerous for white. They have an extra rook. Black has 3 pawns. White's pieces are totally undeveloped. queen on a8 in jeopardy, and white's king is in very dangerous position. So white plays in this position knight e4. They have an extra rook for 3 pawns. 3 pawns is not sufficient compensation for a rook. After knight to e4, white is threatening to exchange queens by playing queen takes c8, and on queen takes c8, knight d6 check, and then they will be winning. So black castles, obviously, and white plays bishop g5. This is the key position of this game. Now, if black moves the queen to e8 somewhere, then white plays knight d2, game goes on, and it's very hard to predict the result of this game. In this position, black has very powerful mating threat. And you see that white's king, if black somehow manages to put their bishop on f1 a6 diagonal, that will be a checkmate, but bishops don't go like this. So what white can do, what black can do, black can try to put bishop on a6, and then if white takes the queen, play b4 checkmate. b4 check, and after c4, bishop takes c4. That's a checkmate. Remember, before we started looking at this game, I said there may be 2 different ways of executing the same combination. Now, bishop a6 seems to be working perfectly because the queen is hanging, white's queen, and the checkmate is a threat. Either one of these threats, if black executes, the game is over. So white cannot give up a queen, and white cannot get checkmated. On the other hand, we have a b4 move that threatens bishop a6 with a checkmate also. Now, the question is, are they both decisive, or only one of them is decisive? I played this game for black, and when I saw there are 2 different ways to win, I played just one of them, and I realized that I was lucky. That was in my junior years. I realized I was lucky I chose the right way. The move I made was b4, and I won in a couple of moves. And later I turned out, and I thought that bishop a6 would have been the same. And only much, much later I realized that bishop a6 is not nearly as good as killing move b4. Now, if white plays c4, then black plays bishop a6, and you see black either wins the queen, white's queen, or checkmates white. Now, why bishop a6 is not as good? We're threatening this b4 checkmate, and we're threatening queen takes queen. Here, remember, black's queen is hanging also. White has counter shot. Very often, we miss counter shots by our opponents. And remember, when there is a counter shot, it's a lot easier for your opponent to find it than for you, because your opponent is cornered and he is going to search a lot harder than you will. And after queen to b7 in this position, you see that black must play bishop takes b7, and after bishop takes d8, rook takes d8. Black has very good position here, but it's not nearly as good as winning a queen. Black has very good position because they have 2 bishops. They are only exchanged down for 3 pawns. They are probably winning, but it's not an extra queen. Extra queen is something very decisive. So you see, you have 2 moves, bishop a6 and b4. One of them is absolute killer, b4, and the other one just gives black a good position. Big difference. See how we have to realize when we make and we threatening mate, if there is an obvious mating threat, you can be 100% sure, no matter how strong, how weak your opponent is, if there is only one defense not to get checkmated, your opponent is going to find it. So that's what you have to realize it before you create that threat and see how decisive is it, how good is it. And if there are more than one way of doing this threat, so try to pick the best. And that's where comes your intuition, your imagination, your experience, and use all the necessary ingredients and weapons to make your combination successful. Next game we're going to see contains one of the most complex, difficult combination in the opening part of the game. Well, I played that game, but what makes this combination easier, that it was part of home preparation, and I'm going to show you how many tactical shots been exchanged by both opponents. It was shot after shot, and very, very rich game tactically with a very unusual type of combination. It all happened in one game in a very early stage. Game was played in 1984 in the World Chess Olympiad between myself. I was on the first board for American team, and the Philippine Grandmaster Eugene Torre was black. So knight f3, d5, against indication, one of the quietest openings in chess theory, but let's see how it developed. Bishop g2, c6, c4, d takes c, knight a3, bishop to e6, knight g5. Now this is all theoretically very well known, and the main move here, bishop d5, but then white goes e4, and game is approximately equal, maybe slightly better for white. However, Torre played in this position bishop g4. This is the move he used against another very famous grandmaster, Victor Korchnoi, and he did very well with it. Now let's see what happened in this game. Knight takes c4, knight d7, and in this position I played queen b3. However, Korchnoi did not play queen b3. Now queen b3 is the prelude for very, very long combination, maybe like 15 moves long, and most of the moves are forced moves, and combination is very long. Queen b3, well, we see what white is threatening with this move. White is threatening simply knight d6 check, e takes d, queen takes f7, checkmate. At the same time, white is threatening the same theme, knight takes f7 check, with all kinds of discovers check with the c4 knight. And also white is threatening queen takes b7. Obviously, queen b3 move was prepared by, analyzed by Torre, so he played knight c5. But I analyzed this position too, and in this position I came to conclusion that white has very strong tactical threats, very well hidden. Move was made queen e3. Now queen e3 is normally very, very ugly looking move. When you see that move queen e3 played, move kind of queen e3 kind of move can be only either super strong or just simply very weak. In this position, it's a very strong move. Queen e3, and black obviously played e6. And now white has to start solving some problems. Justify their queen on e3. It's very difficult to justify, but there is the justification and explanation of it. Knight takes f7, king takes f7, knight e5 check, king to e8. And here we have to prove what did we sacrifice the piece for. You can tell that if white can play knight takes g4, knight takes g4, and queen takes e6, and then take on g4, they're going to win the game. But knight on c5 is going to take black's queen. So white cannot play this move. So what I did in this position, I went b4. So I sacrificed this piece, and now I went b4. And now black has to do something. If knight moves, as I already explained, then knight takes g4 is going to win the game for white. So black simply cannot go knight to d7 back. So after b4, black played knight d5, attacking white's queen. White played queen d4, I played queen d4. This is the only move I have, and it's very forced. But now c5 knight is hanging and g4 bishop is hanging. Why is it good for black? Because they have knight takes b4. And now we see what black's idea is. White cannot play queen takes b4 because after knight d3 check, next move black is going to play bishop takes b4, winning the queen and the game. So white played queen takes g4, knight c2 check, king d1, knight takes a1. Position where black has an extra rook. But queen h5 check forces g6 move, because king e7 leads to a forced mate after queen f7 check and knight c4 checkmate. g6 is a forced move. Now white is whole rook down. White plays knight takes g6, h takes g is forced, queen takes h8, taking the rook, sacrificing knight, and next move, as you can tell, black has no defense to queen from h8 taking on a1. This is very, very unusual way to trap the knight on a1 with the queen from h8. So in this position, after queen takes h8, black played queen a5. It looks like game is over and white has it made. Queen takes a1, and black plays queen a4 check. And after king e1, black plays knight to b3. Now knight to b3, white plays queen b1, and black plays knight to d4. Now this is very, very unusual type of position. Now it looks like white can take queen takes b7, continue taking black's material and winning the game. But queen takes b7, unexpectedly enough, loses for white. You see, you played beautiful combination. That may happen. That happens in chess all the time. You play beautiful combination, you get to totally winning position, and then you make one obvious move, and you think that it's very strong, and next think you know you get mated after queen c4. Queen c4 is winning for a black by force. You have to realize that in this position looks very quiet, but one very important point here we have to make is neither side can castle. Both kings walked. This move would have been great if after queen c4 white could castle. But white cannot castle. Remember, they played king d1 and king e1. So after queen takes b7, queen c4, queen takes a8, king f7, white is getting mated. Either queen takes c1 or queen takes e2. There is absolutely no defense on queen b7 check, bishop b7, and white can resign immediately. So I remember while we played this game, there's a number of players were very, very much surprised. First, why black didn't castle long. Black cannot castle long because black's king walked already too. They took the knight on f7. Remember, in early stage of the game, and then they went king e8. And the white's king walked also. So this position is very, very difficult to understand unless you know that both kings walked. And after queen to b1, in this position, what happened is just I got completely winning position. I did not fall in this trap, and later I made some serious mistakes, and game ended in a draw. But we're not going to analyze all the game because that's not as important from tactical standpoint here. The point we want to make that unusual and very long combination and very difficult was to detect one or the other theme. Very seldom somebody can play this combination for white. It's very hard to play on board without preliminary analysis at home. Obviously, I spend a lot of time analyzing this position and position after queen takes h1, and when I trapped my opponent's knight on a1 was part of my home analysis, and that's how I got this winning position. That's another advantage of the home preparation, home analysis. A lot of tactics can be analyzed. We, at that time, it was in 1984, we couldn't use computers. We didn't have computer programs that could analyze for us with such accuracy and see all these tactical shots, finding this for us. We can do it now. We couldn't then. Very interesting. Well, and also, obviously, you're not going to have any computer help while you're playing the tournament game. So it's very, very interesting to notice all different tactical shots in this game. Finding theme and using theme from the end games in the middle game. That can happen too. Well, most of the time, end game combinations, tactics, are connected with a pass pawn. But not all of them. Some of them, like when we have an end game combination where you win a piece or you win a rook, they call this type of combinations middle game type of combinations. But when you have in the middle game combinations with creating pass pawns, those are more like end game type of combinations. Next tactical shot in a position, I'm gonna tell you the nature of this combination. It's a very, very original. Well, first, theme is very well known, but what makes this original, there's those themes you can see only in the middle game, in the end games. But this was performed in the middle game. Let's go with the game, knight f3, d5, g3, c6, bishop g2, bishop g4, castle, knight d7, d3, e5, e4, d takes e, d takes e, bishop c5, h3, bishop h5, knight d2, f6, c3, bishop f7, knight h4, knight e7, knight f5, knight takes f5, pawn takes f5, bishop e7, knight e4. I purposely don't attract your attention to the early stage of the game because this has nothing to do with the purpose of our analysis. Knight e4, knight c5, queen g4, g5. Well, in this position, white is threatening queen takes g7, and black does not want a castle for the obvious reason, bishop h6. So they play g5, bishop e3, knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, queen c7, rook f to d1. White has some little advantage because they control the d file, they stop black from castling queenside, and castling kingside may be somewhat dangerous for black. So after h5, queen e2 and h4, this is very, very important position. In this position, white played very, very strong move. Normal reaction by majority of the player in this position would be g4. But this is a mistake. White should not close the king side. The reason, black is having a problem in this position locating the home for their king. Since king cannot castle queen side, so after g4, black is going to have no problem castling the king side and then playing rook fd8, after which the game is equal. So black played h4 and white played king g2. Now black will never be safe castling king side because pawn can take pawn, king h2, and g file will be open. Or if they decide to take hg, fg, and then castle, then still we can go h4 and open position on king side. So this is strategically very interesting decision to play king g2 to keep potential activity, potentials for the king side activity. So and after h4, white played king g2. Now black plays king f8. Now they see they cannot castle because white is going to take on h4 and open the file, but they can go king f8 because right now obviously white is not going to take and let black take on h4 with a rook. So after king f8, white goes rook d2, and on rook d8, rook takes d8, bishop takes d8, and rook d1, and on bishop e7, queen to d3. You see white is completely dominating on the d file. Queen to b8, queen to c2, and black goes a6. Bishop to b6, queen to c8, c4. White tries to get more space on queen side and try to smother black on a queen side and the center. After c4, in this position, after c4, bishop to e8, queen d2, black played h takes g, f takes g, and king g7. Now, how do we find a good move, and how do we make a right decision here for white? You can tell that black must play bishop f7 next move or move after that, and white has to try to find a way to penetrate black's position. g4 is the move. Idea maybe bishop f2 and h4, and we're going to open the position. After g4, rook h7, queen a5, bishop d7, bishop c5. You see, white tries to exchange dark square bishops to control the d6 square. King f8, bishop takes e7, check, rook takes e7, and rook d6. This is the triumph for white strategy. Now, rook on d6 is very active. King f7, queen to d2, and white is doubled on d file. Queen to c7, and this is the position where the combination that was played by white is decisive, and this is the kind of endgame type of combination. We breaking through. Here is the decisive move. This move ends the game. Pawn takes, g5, f takes, and now f6. And you see that black is totally crushed here. We attacking the rook. We made a pass pawn, but we did not just make a pass pawn. We also opened black's position, and after f6, black is crushed because rook cannot move, because rook takes d7 wins the game. Black still played bishop h3 check, king takes h3, queen c8 check, and after king h2 and queen g4, one more subtlety, bishop g6 check, and black must take it, because if black goes back it's a checkmate. And when black took the bishop, then pawn takes rook with the discovered check, and black has nothing to do but resign in this position. Very interesting breakthrough combination. Again, we'll look at it again, and that's where we played h4, and you see black has no choice, because if white takes on g5, they will be king will be completely naked 2 moves later. And when they took, then g5, again, the position, rook takes f6 is a threat, g takes f, followed by queen h6 is a threat. This move is forced to, and finally f6. F pawn is something we needed to activate. This is very interesting combination, and you see the many moves earlier when white made a good decision by not closing g4 and keeping potentials open on a king side, and it paid off with a very interesting combination in the end of the game. Frequently, we see that in one or another combination, there are multiple themes, multiple ideas. And one of those type of combinations I want to go through with you now. This is a typical position from Nimzo Indian opening. Black played fg, and normal positional move in this position is h takes g, maintaining flexible pawn structure. However, white played f takes g, which is also very, very strong move. Black played knight e4, bishop takes e4, and rook takes e4. This is one of my games also played not that long ago, actually maybe like 15 years ago. And in this position, I played rook f3. Now, this position is very, very tactical, which you cannot see right now, but it will become very, very tactical. The reason for that, why position should be so tactical, because white is going to get total possession of the f file, and black has no way of stopping white's c1 bishop that seems so passive now, penetrating black's position decisively. And white is going to create enormous amount of threats. After rook f3, black played bishop c6, rook to f1, and here black realizes that white wants to triple on f-file, and it may become very critical, because after tripling, white's dark square bishop will decisively come into the game. What happened? Rook e7, queen f2, threatening rook f8, h6, rook f8 check, rook takes f8, queen takes f8 check, king h7. See, in a position, if rook stood on e4, white would have had to develop bishop on a3. Since rook left e4 square, now we can bring our c1 bishop decisively on c1 h6 diagonal. At this point, the threat is queen takes h6 check, and after king g8, rook f8 checkmate. So black's answer is absolutely forced. Rook to g7. Now bishop f4, threatening bishop e5. You see, the seemingly passive bishop becomes major player in this position. Bishop f4, black played queen e8, and after bishop e5, black cannot exchange queens, because after rook takes e5, black's rook is hanging. On rook g8 will be rook f7, winning immediately, and if rook moves to d7, then rook h8, checkmate. So black cannot play queen takes f8. After rook e7, white played e takes d, bishop takes d5, and here final punch white delivers by playing rook f7 check. And this is more than one theme in this combination. Rook f7. You see, three different pieces can capture white's rook, but every one of them is losing. If queen takes on f7, then theme of the combination becomes deflection. We deflected the queen from the 8th rank, from the back rank, and we can checkmate black's king, which we couldn't if queen stood on e8. We cannot checkmate now. If black plays rook takes f7, then we're deflecting the rook from protecting black's queen. And the third motif, third theme, is if bishop takes on f7, then it blocks rook from protecting the g7 square, and queen g7 is a checkmate. It's a triple theme that decides the fate of this game, and rook f7 is doing it. Now, the reason why we couldn't play rook f7 right away, because rook would have taken on f7, and you see the black's queen is protected by bishop on c6. So we're playing e takes d first, and black cannot play queen takes f8, because after rook takes f8, the bishop is hanging on c6, and rook h8 mate is threatening. So black's answer, somewhat forced, bishop takes d5, and then rook f7, having triple themed tactical shot, decides the game. Black resigned. Very interesting, but at the same time, I have to mention, very, very simple. What helped white? Thematics. It's good to know themes that you're trying to perform combination on. Themes are very important to see more and more tactics, to be equipped with more different ideas and themes. Let's look at another absolutely unexpected tactical shot in the opening part of the game. We looked at it on our opening preparation tape, but now when in a sketch, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, ed, bishop c4. Now we are not going to analyze the advantages and disadvantages of this variation. Let's just get to the tactical shot, unexpected tactical shot of this in this position, in this game. Knight f6, e5, d5, bishop b5, knight e4, knight takes d4, bishop c5, bishop e3, bishop d7, bishop takes c6, b takes c, knight d2, knight takes d2, queen takes d2. Castle for black, castle for white. Queen e7, knight b3, bishop b6, queen c3, f6, f4, rook f e8, and knight c5. F takes e, f takes e. This position, it does not look that that any kind of tactics possible in this position. Simple calculation: can black play queen takes e5? Now black's d7 bishop is hanging, but then if white plays knight takes d7, black is going to play bishop takes e3 with right away, or even after exchange the queens, the same problem. It's hard to tell. White hasn't done any tactical preparations here. The position seems like very quiet position. However, white has a shot that instantly ends the game here. It's very, very unexpected shot and very easy to overlook in a practical game. The move is rook to f8, check, and black loses queen. Black can resign here, because if black plays rook takes f8, then white plays queen takes e5, simply winning the queen. And if black plays king takes f8, then knight takes d7. You see a fork, and white also wins the queen. Now, this kind of tactics are very, very dangerous. The reason those tactics are dangerous because it's easy to overlook. It's only one move combination, but there is no theme and motif that are easy to recognize. That's why it's easy to overlook. Well, now, if it's easy to overlook, then it's difficult to prepare to this kind of tactics. So you have to see those kind of hidden combinations exist in chess a lot. So you have to be able to recognize them by looking at more and more and more of those. It's gonna make a lot easier for you to prevent them if they are bad for you, and to prepare them if you are on the right side of the game.